Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the Human Beauty Movement podcast, your source for hope, healing, happiness, and humanity. My name is Jennifer Norman. I'm the founder of the Human Beauty Movement and your host. This podcast is here to guide you on your journey of self-love, empowerment, soul alignment, and joy. With each episode, I invite beautiful humans from all corners of the globe to join me for open conversations about their life lessons and the important work that they are doing to help heal humankind. Take a moment now to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. I'm so glad you're here joining me for today's show. Today's podcast is all about the biology of love, and we have a very intriguing question to explore. Are humans hardwired for monogamy or not? To help us understand the genetic nature of love and coupling, we have a very special guest, Dr. Liat Yakir. Dr. Yakir is a renowned biologist, author, and lecturer who specializes in the biology of emotions and human behavior. With a PhD in genetics and a Master of Science in hormone research from the Weizmann Institute of Science, along with a Bachelor of Science in Life Sciences from Tel Aviv University, Dr. Yakir was a featured expert on the reality show Marriage at First Sight, and she's also the host of Brain Story, a popular podcast in Israel. Her first book, A Brief History of Love, explores the biology of romantic love and has become a bestseller in Israel, captivating readers with its insightful and engaging exploration of one of humanity's most profound experiences. In today's episode, Dr. Yakir will take us on a journey through the biological underpinnings of love, examining questions such as what roles do genetics and hormones play in romantic attachment? How do evolutionary forces shape our relationships? And of course, are humans naturally inclined towards monogamy? So whether you're curious about the science behind love or simply fascinated by human behavior, this episode is for you. Dr. Yakir's insights promise to be both enlightening and thought-provoking, offering a deeper understanding of the complex emotions that bind us together. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Liat Yakir. Welcome, Liat. It's so great to have you on the show.
Hi, Jennifer. I'm happy, very happy to meet you and to be here in your podcast.
Oh,
This is
it's so
exciting for me.
delightful. And you're podcasting with me all the way from Israel. I am just delighted how the podcasting world brings everybody together. So, wow, love is such a complicated topic. And I wanted to let you know that I was recently doing a workshop with teenagers and I was trying to provide a solid definition of love to them, which is hard to do because everybody has a different impression about what love is. And the best definition that I could offer as I was doing my research was that it's like this emotional combination of three things: closeness, caring, and commitment. And depending on the type of love you have, that there's usually some sort of an interaction of closeness, care, and commitment. But we've been sold this dream of marriage and happily ever after. But it's a fact today, marriage rates are declining. About 39% of marriages in the US anyway end in divorce. So as I understand it, from a biological standpoint, you're not so surprised.
Yes, not at all.
What is love? What do hormones and neurons and genes have to do with love at all?
Yes, it will be a pleasure for me. I talk about it all the time, and it's a subject that is very interesting for me. So I'm a biologist, and so I look at the world through the lens of biology. And basically, we need to understand that our behavior and our emotion and our desires are really motivated and driven by genes and hormones and neurons that shapes who we are. So when we talk about love, we basically talk about three stages of love, and in each stage different hormones plays with our head, and we call love for all the three stages, but basically we need to really define each stage and understand it fully so we will understand why biology screws our love life and make life hard for us in long-term relationships. So the first stage of love is attraction. Why we are attracted to some people and not to others. What are the attractions rules of evolution? The main hormones that plays in this stage, it's testosterone and estrogen. even in the same-sex love, it's basically testosterone and estrogen. We are looking for signs of these hormones in the other person, signs of fertility, signs of health, signs of good genes. We are attracted to these signals. And then comes the infatuation state, the falling in love, the butterflies in the belly. And it's basically the product of 3-4 hormones: dopamine, serotonin. Dopamine is the pleasure hormone, the motivation hormone. Serotonin is the happy hormone, happiness, makes us feel good, regulator of our mood. And adrenaline, that makes us excited. This stage has many side effects because these drugs are very potent. I call them the love drugs. In the world of drugs, it's like cocaine and MD. It's very powerful drugs. So in this stage, like, we feel euphoria, and when we are not with the partner, we feel withdrawal symptoms and sometimes obsessiveness, relationship OCD. We want to be all the time together and control and know what the partner is doing right now and if he wants me or doesn't want me. Jealousy and even temporary insanity.
Sounds wonderful. The type of love that we're talking about is more the romantic type, the more eros, I guess that's in Latin we would call it. And certainly there are different types of love: familial love, friendship love, self-love. But what we're focusing on for this particular episode is really the idea of romantic love and partnering up, so to speak.
Exactly. So you are attracted to someone, and then if everything goes good, you make love. The sex, during sexual intercourse, there are a lot of hormones released in the brain. So we get connected and we get attached afterwards. But the infatuation stage, the falling in love, the butterflies in the belly, usually this stage lasts between 6 hours and 2 years. Usually 1 year. After 1 year, all these hormones that are secreted in high doses when it's new, the novelty-seeking hormones, especially dopamine, we want something new. But when the person becomes familiar to us, the same touch, the same smell, the same words, the same dynamics, so we become familiar, and the passion dwindles over time. So we feel less passion. The passion is basically dopamine and testosterone also that makes us desire. So after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, for some people it can be very short-lived, and for others long-lived. But the third stage that we all want to get to, this stage, is the attachment, the safety, the security, that there is a lot of benefit to this stable state, that you know the person, he's very familiar to you. You know that you will get emotional support. Sometimes you will fight and then you will conciliate, but still you have emotional support, but not anymore the butterflies in the belly. You're not anymore feeling like this withdrawal symptoms when you're not together or when they're not sending messages. And we come to this stable state, which can be sometimes boring because it's familiar. And sometimes we can see other person and he can makes us again feel some butterflies or adrenaline, that attraction, because, as you said, we are not biologically inclined to monogamy as species. As biology, we don't meet the criteria in biology to be called a monogamous creatures. So we have this wiring that makes us look for something new after a while. So that's why we cheat, some people, or cheat even in fantasy, thinking about another person, looking again for these fertility signs and health signs, which is very healthy. It's good to be attractive also to other people. It's part of our biology. But then we sometimes start to feel boredom with the same relationship. And then troubles come because the love drugs that were in the beginning really mask our conscious, and we see the person in euphoria. We have this euphoric effect that we see everything good and we see all the ideal things about the person. And after these hormones decline, we see the partner truly as he is, with the flaws, with the weaknesses, and also with our own weaknesses, because in the beginning, in the infatuation stage, we try to put the best personality of ourselves to be like the most attractive and very light and funny and nice. And then after a while, we come back to our own true self. And then we see each other not like in the beginning. And then the fight starts and the power struggles and all the small and big fights about everything, about money, about where to go and what to do, because the other person is not exactly like me. But at the beginning of the relationship, we want to be loved. We want person will be attracted to us. So we try to satisfy the other needs. And after a while, we come back to ourselves, our true selves, what our needs and what we want. So the struggles become the conflicts and the fights. If we manage to pass this stage, we can come to this final stage of attachment, which I basically think this stage we should call love, the real love, that you love the person as he is and you love yourself as you are, and you can be really for each other, with the weaknesses, with the flaws, with the loss of attraction sometimes, and with the sex is not like it was in the beginning, but it's a price we pay.
Wow. I think that a lot of people can relate to exactly what you were talking about. And a lot of times we try to deny it, I think, as society, that it's like, oh no, I want to find this forever love. And I have to, like, all of these emotions that I might be feeling about looking for somebody else. Or if you're a woman and you are heterosexual with a man who might have a wandering eye and thinking, oh, that's a bad person. That's somebody who is not going to be faithful. And yet, we're saying that we as a species are probably predisposed not to be faithful. And I think that will come as a shock, or at least perhaps not a shock, but it's just something that I think a lot of people have really been conditioned to believe is something either sinful or not ideal in terms of how we are supposed to behave. I know that in your work, you do a lot of comparisons to nature, to animals and other mammals. And if we think about what you were talking about, the attraction, I mean, there's no question that in mating season, we talk about peacocking, and a lot of birds and animals, I mean, they have these showy colors, and it's all to try to attract a mate. And so it's absolutely true that we're not the only ones that try to put on a good show in order to attract a partner. It's really part of the whole biological process. And this idea of infatuation and hormones raging and all of these things, which leads us to a place of wanting to pair up and mate. But then once things start getting familiar and what we would say is too domestic, or he's stopped trying, she's letting herself go, they're not putting in the effort that they once were in order to woo me, that's when a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not married anymore, I just have a roommate, they joke and say. They're just living together, but there's no passion here. I would love for you to talk a little bit more about what you have learned or what you know about this idea of monogamy, humans and other species, because I find it so fascinating.
Yes. So basically, only 5% of mammals are monogamists. So it's very rare in nature, because we have to understand our brain and nervous system, ours and other mammals and other also animals, is not wired for a happiness and happily ever after. It's just wired to make as much copies of ourselves as possible and to diversify the genes that we are mixing with. So I would be an evolutionary success if I will have 4 children from different men and not from the same men, because this is how it's risk management for my genes, not for me, it's for my genes. I mean, I'm talking from the perspective of the genetics of the genes that wants to stay here forever. And if I have a diversified children, my genes mixed with other genes of many men or 4 men, let's say, I will have a diverse immune system for my kids, diverse genes for my kids. So maybe some of them won't survive, but the other will survive. So like when a dog give labor, female, usually the pups are not from the same male, are from different males. So the evolutionary stable state, the evolutionary stable strategy in nature is polygamy, not monogamy. Polygamy. The males are fighting for their status, and the female are very picky and they want the best. They want the alpha male. They want the smartest and the best runner and the best with all the beautiful decorations. This is basically the stable strategy in nature, polygamy. And also humans, for even until today in Africa, Africa and Arab states and also other places, there is polygamy in humans, and monogamy is very, very rare. We see it basically more in birds, but also in birds and the 5% of the mammals, like some kind of wolves and other mammalian, one species of voles. It's very rare, but basically we see that it happens. A monogamy will evolve only in climate that are very harsh. There is not enough food, many predators. So the offspring, the child, needs two parents in order to survive. Only when the child needs two parents to survive, there will be monogamy. Like in birds, the eggs are out of the body, so the mother needs to keep the eggs and the father goes to bring food and they replace each other. So basically, and even in these monogamous creatures, it's not forever happily ever after. It's not forever. They are serial monogamists, which means that they are getting divorced after the pups goes to independence or the chicks will fly away from the nest. They will choose another partner. They will not stay with one partner for life. So basically they get divorced and remarried again like we do. So we are somewhere in between of serial monogamist and polygamist. And also we have variation in humans. And monogamy is not good for everyone. And also polyamory or other options are not good for anyone. So we are also different. And there is genetics to this also. So it's very interesting because researchers were very interested in understanding why the monogamists behave like this. What makes them stay with the same partner at least as long as the kids are at home. And they found one gene especially, but of course it's never one gene, but it's also rooted in the genetic. It's basically a receptor for oxytocin, which is the love hormone. So monogamists have more of this gene. And so basically we don't meet the criteria. Criteria number one is the male will look exactly like the female. In human, it's not like this. Men look different from females. They have more muscle. They have more mass, the body mass. Monogamists don't have wars. They don't need to fight because everyone has one mate. And in polygamists, only one gets the females, only the alpha. So the wars can be very, very cruel between the males. And also in humans, we still have wars and we still see men are more competitive and also women are very picky still. I think there is a research in the Tinder and other apps that not all the men get messages from the women. Few men, like some say 10% or 20% gets most of the messages from women. So we also want the we look for height. Height men. Height is a parameter that women really check. And also social status. Men with higher social status gets more messages from women. They are more approached from women. So, and also there are other criteria like how long is the male organ, the penis. And in human is very big in relations to the body size. So usually a bigger organ means more sperm competition. There is more competition. In birds, for example, they almost lost the penis. There is almost no penis in birds because the female didn't like this. So they choose only for the ones because females in birds can fly. If she doesn't like what she see, she can fly away. So there was a selection for loss of the penis. It's amazing. But basically, we humans are not meeting the criteria. Some scientists say that there is, of course, benefits, especially psychological benefits in humans. And basically, our children is also very needy and needs a lot of care and can stay at home until the age of 30. So you need a lot of care and resources to provide for human baby. So there are benefits for monogamy. Also, I'm a real preacher for monogamy. Yes, even though I talk about biology is against us in this story, I really believe in monogamy and love for the same person. I'm divorced twice, so it's not forever. Really struggled in life with love, my relationship. So that's why I went to this journey of understanding and looking on the research and the literature to understand why it happened to me and it happened to many others. And it's some kind of universal law of love. So it's biology.
Wow. You just gave so much information. And I think the important underpinning here is that we're not talking about ethics on this particular episode. If you are for polygamy or against it and feel that it's immoral or not. We're really not getting into that discussion. Also, in terms of patriarchal versus matriarchal households, you may have an opinion on feminism or not. However, from an evolutionary perspective and from a scientific and biological perspective, a lot of this does make sense, and it is worth a lot of research and thinking about how society has developed in this way to believe that monogamy was the purest form of the way that a partnership could be held. And I'm curious, in your research, what did you find, Dr. Yakir, about why all of a sudden monogamy became the way that relationships should be from the standpoint of society?
Yeah, this is a very, very interesting question. So we need to go back to the Romans. The Romans were the one that distributed monogamy and wine and monogamy in their
It
colonies.
seems to be antithetical, wine and monogamy, but go ahead.
So in order to broaden the empire, they came also to this area, the Middle East and the Arab, my area, basically, but also in other places like Turkey. And there were polygamy there. Everywhere there was polygamy, one man with few women, many children. And this made real big headache for the empire because a man in a polygamist family is loyal to the family, to the clan, to the really big family. There is many women and many children, and it's like a small army. It's a big clan.
Mm-hmm.
So it made a headache for the empire. So they made this rule that one man, one woman, this is love. And through Christianity and the church, they distributed this idea, one man, one male, one female, happily ever after. And then the culture also basically also ruled by empires since then, made this idea very, very intuitive for us, or very rooted in, we are born with this idea. Look for the one, get married, and live happily ever after. And this is a process of the culture of 1,500 years through religion.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that when religions start to decline in the 70s of the last century in the people's life, we are not living by the religious rule of the church or the synagogue or everywhere or the mosque.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone can do whatever he wants or she wants. And also the feminist, of course, movement.
Mm-hmm.
So this model breaks down. The monogamy as we knew it, one man, one woman. Usually the woman is subordinate to the man. Yes. Family come from the word I know, famulus, which is the slave's household of the Lord, the patriarch. Like the women and the children are the kind of subordinated to the male. So you will have your own family and everything will be okay. And it start to shake, all this model start to shake, all this structure, which also contributed economically to humans, yes, of course, but still it's really breaking in this century is due to the feminist movement. Women can choose, women can decide, women are not anymore want to be subordinate to anyone and not to the men, of course, just want to choose the mate for themselves, and the religion doesn't hold them together anymore. So that's why I'm talking about biology. I think that in this era we should talk about biology because it comes back, because there are no social constructs that binds us to any kind of model. It's like a new family. We can decide our own structure for the economic unit, men with men, women with women, and I'm a single mother. This is a family of single mother and two children, and of course we're just creating new structures. But while creating new structures, in my opinion, is we need to go back to the basics of our evolutionary roots and our biology and understand what is love, because it has a lot of benefits for us if we know to make it right, because now we don't have any more constructs of society. It's still very hard. People are still getting married with this dream that it will be forever. We see that the reality is less optimistic. The span of marriage is getting shorter. After 1 year, 2 years, less than 5 years. People are getting divorced, sometimes with a small child at home. And I think basically it's because still we have a wrong paradigm or premises about love. So if we understand it and first know how to choose right, to attract to a person, to be attracted to a person from the good reasons, to choose not only through physical appearance, good looking, social status, and all this, because in the long run, it is not the characteristics that predict sustainable and long lasting pair bond. It's basically more the personality traits, the values of a person, the kindness, which we are not attracted to kindness usually. We're attracted to good looking and to sometimes narcissistic people, that can show off and everyone wants to be with them. So we also want to be with them. And sometimes the good guys or the good girls that are more shy and very kind, sometimes pleasing, just want to do everything for you. And we sometimes look for the bad guys, the bad guys or the bad girls, sometimes more erotic or more attractive to us. So I'm saying let the primitive brain to choose a partner, because it's a very, very important choice. We can change our career, we can change the place we live, we can change basically everything we want. But the person with which we make children, the father or the mother of our children, is unreplaceable. This person will be with us and will be big part of our happiness, even when we will not be together. Even after divorce, we still go to the marriage of the daughter or son together because we have children. So it's very important. So sometimes I feel so sorry that we choose this important thing for our lives in social app, dating apps, like commercial app, like in Walt, like I choose food. I want it to be with onion, without onion, like relation shopping. It's called really relation shopping.
Yeah.
Like if
Tastes
I
and
choose the right
preferences.
height.
Wow, I think that it's such a fascinating time to be alive because there is so much in transition now. I think that a lot of people were unaware and probably, as you were saying, still are unaware of the basis of monogamy and how it was really conflated with power as well as religion back in the Roman days. And then how that becomes almost what your ethical basis is about how things are right. And in the United States, polygamy is outlawed. We're not allowed to be a polygamist. Yet it's almost as if the biology and our human nature is always going to win out in some way. And so you do see that failing of the structure. You see the failing in religion, which obviously before it was always taboo to get divorced for a long, long time in the United States and in other places in the world. But now it's really not as much of an issue because it is just so prevalent. It's not so much something that people feel that they need to be obligated if they're quote unquote unhappy in a marriage and can't seem to make it work. Yet perhaps we're biologically just hardwired to all of a sudden start drifting apart and start needing something else in our lives. We, from a psychological perspective, put a lot of pressure on ourselves because of what we believe is right and what's wrong, and look for practicalities. I think sometimes people are like, oh, let's get married. It's financially going to be much more a much better decision if we can buy a house together rather than apart. It's hard when you try to raise a child and you've got either mixed marriages or you're doing it alone. It's quite difficult. And so people try to stay together for the children, and then they start living a life which is a bit of bondage, which is a bit of suffering because they feel it's more born out of obligation rather than true love and those feelings of really care and that closeness that they may have felt at one time in their lives. Can we talk about that for a moment? Because I know that you said that there is something also biologically that happens when we have children. And, over time, as things start to become more familiar, things start to seem less passionate, we start showing our true colors, unveiling our true selves. They say, maybe that's why we're preaching authenticity from the beginning, is like, know me from the beginning so that there are no surprises later on down the line. But what happens to us when we have children in terms of the relationship?
Yes. So it's also go back to hormones, but the number one enemy of the relationship is stress. When we are stressed, our also sexual desire declines. We become more aggressive or self-centered. And children brings a lot of happiness, but a lot of stress to the relationship. And women also undergo tremendous changes in the brain during pregnancy and labor, giving birth, and also afterwards. Basically, huge hormonal changes and also changes in wirings of the brain for more oxytocin. You are now caring machine, a rearing machine. You need to be focused on the needs of your child and be more empathic. And really, it's a rearrangement of white matter and the gray matter in the brain, and more cells. I talk about it in the book, more cells that secrete oxytocin in the female brain after she gives birth. So basically, we go through changes. So evolutionary terms, the rationale of evolution is when you have a baby, you shouldn't go and seek for male, for another offspring. Yes, you should take care of the offspring now. So many women feel that their sexual desire declines after they give birth. Some are not, but many do feel that it's just not interested right now. I'm not interested in this. And sometimes the men feel very frustrated. I had this woman that was very sexual. She wanted to touch and she wanted to have fun together. And now suddenly she becomes like rearing machine. All what makes her motivated is the children and where is my place now. And even the hormonal changes the women will undergo make them less sexually desired. This basically what I explain now. This was the biological reason for my first divorce after my child was born. I didn't understand it at that time, the tremendous changes that I went through. I practically became a different woman. Now I understand it. Even I changed career. Instead of going on in research and staying away from my daughter and not be able to breastfeed her, this was unacceptable for me. So I changed career instead of change my desire to be with the child. So many couples undergoes this changes. The man doesn't undergo rearrangement of his brain because he's not having this experience of pregnancy and giving birth. So it's a different process for the man, and he usually feels very frustrated, like even trying to understand what is my role in the house now, because the children wants the mother. And the mother also gets a lot of her oxytocin. It's not the mother or the father, it's the ones that stays with the children more. A lot of her love hormone from the kids. They are touching, they want skin to skin, they want to feel your heart, they want to go after you wherever you go. So on the one hand, you feel all this oxytocin that fills you and makes you feel very good, because we need this hormone. But from the other side, also, it's a lot of stress. Stress makes us release cortisol, because at the end of the day, you didn't have time for yourself 1 minute during the day. You just think about them and do things for them. And finally, in the evening, you have little time for yourself, and then your partner comes and he wants that you will, be with him.
The last thing that you want to do.
That's the last thing that you want to do now. But he didn't feel all this oxytocin. So yeah, of course, the children comes to the father and he plays with them, of course. Usually in most households, it's more women play and stay with the children. So he's coming back from work and he wants also his dose of oxytocin for the day, the meal of oxytocin. What about me? But you don't have anything to give anymore. And also, children makes us, especially small kids, makes us release prolactin. Prolactin is the hormone that creates the milk. But even when we are not breastfeeding anymore, when we are around our kids, we make prolactin, which makes us want to care for them more. It's like a manipulation of the kids on our brain. Like, care for me, care for me, care for me. I will make you secrete prolactin so you won't think about anything other than my needs now. Be very empathic to me. And prolactin is another hormone that destroys our sexual desire. We have secretion of prolactin in men, especially we see it in men after orgasm. Usually men cannot get erected again, like for a few 20 minutes, up to 20 minutes. This is prolactin. It causes this period. It's basically an anti-erotic hormone.
It inhibits your libido at that point. Yeah.
And we are full of this hormone when we have small children. That's why usually couples with small children don't make sex like they used to. They are the group of the population that make the least sex intercourse in population. When children are getting more adult, we go back to feel all this desire. So what we need to basically understand, it's leave the frustration, the shame, the guilt, all this feeling that we feel. Like, I remember I felt a lot of guilt, a lot of frustration, and like I'm not a good enough mother and I'm not a good enough wife for my husband. And I didn't know how to say my needs. I'm very people pleaser.
Yeah.
So I was taking it all on myself, and that makes me, in the end, the stress was too high for me. So we need to understand play of these hormones on our body and differences between the female brain and the male brain, the female system, production system, and the male reproduction system. They have their own frustrations. We have our own frustrations, and we need just to be more empathic to each other. Yes, it's not like she's doing on purpose or he's doing on purpose. It's usually different mechanism, different operating system that we have. But when we talk about it and when we share, and when very important take home message is for women, especially young women with children, to take care of yourself. You are the most important thing in this family. The foundation of the family is the mother, I believe, because her emotional state will affect everyone. It affects the children and it affects the husband. And what we need in order to reduce the levels of the stress hormones, the cortisol and also the prolactin, is to be with the kids, but also to be without them, to do things alone, to have your friends and hobbies. Usually we tend to, I'm a mother now, so I don't have anything. Just being a mother is enough for me. Being a mother and a career, it's enough. And we forget about the happy chemicals that we need in order to maintain a happy life and sexual desire. Sexual desire cannot come when you are stressed. It won't come. You just want to sleep or be with yourself or just read a book now and have a coffee. That's it. Leave me alone. Sexual desire will come when we are satisfied with ourselves, satisfied with life after a walk in the park and sunlight and good sleep. Sleep is the foundation. And usually parents for small children, young children, they are not sleeping enough. So put in the schedule, the sleep, and after a good sleep and a good meal, even before the good meal, because it will be heavy afterwards, but to make time for sex, make time. I don't like to call it sex because when we say sex, we think it has to be, penetrative, and it just means to be sexual with one another, to be intimate, to hold one another, skin to skin, massages, caresses, even if one of the partners will eventually satisfy himself, it's okay, or herself, it's okay. It doesn't have to come with a duty. It has to finish like in orgasm. No, it's just the touch. We are touchy creatures. We need hugs and kisses and caresses. You see it in the babies, in children. They just want to hug you. In the COVID, we saw how horrible it was psychologically for us if we cannot touch each other. So basically, it's not to count how much sex you did, but how sexual we were with each other. Eroticism and fantasy, because we have this Coolidge effect, the tolerance, less dopamine for the same familiar touch and familiar protocol of sex. And then we have prolactin from the baby, from the kids. And then we have the cortisol from the stress. The stress is not only, of course, from the children, it's from life and everything around and the career. And we are in a very stressful society. So we have all the reason to fail if we don't understand it. We are not biologically monogamous. We have all these hormones that makes us, when we have children, makes us really go apart from each other. And then after 10, 20 years, you cannot stand each other anymore.
Sounds amazing.
So that's why we need to work on it. And when I say work on it, is to work on our hormones. And we know that number one predictor of successful marriage, successful relationship is not the partner, is not the quality and the personality of the partner. It's not the quality of the match. It's the satisfaction of oneself with his life. Like if I'm good, if I'm happy with myself, with my career, with my friends, I have everything that I need. I tend to be more good in the relationship. I don't criticize a lot and I don't see everything the negative because I feel good. I'm good with myself. So I can be good to the other person. So the number one rule, a guideline, is to keep yourself satisfied with life. Elevate your happy chemicals, relaxation, mindfulness. Some people are more stressed than others. Some people really, like myself, I have my own times of depression or anxiety. It's not clinical depression, but sometimes, I feel I have ups and downs. Still, I know that music and sunlight and vacation and friends. For me, it's especially female friends. We have our own group. And when we call each other the charger, when we are with each other, we can go back to the family.
So uplifting. What amazing, amazing information and advice, because I think that that's true. It starts all with yourself and making sure that you're taken care of. And you're going to be the one that knows best how to take take care of you. And a lot of times when we are people pleasers, I know that you mentioned that you were one, I was one. I think that there's a lot of people that can relate to that when you feel that you're obligated to give more than you receive, rather than it being a little bit like, I need to take some time for me and just make sure that my life isn't filled with suffering and obligation and duty and work, that I actually love it. I love myself. I love my life. I love how things are going. And of course, my relationships are going to be better. Of course, I'll feel stressed, but I'll be able to be better to manage it. I'll understand when my hormones are getting out of whack, and I'll be able to identify it rather than letting them run my life. I'll be able to understand the ebbs and flows and the seasons of my life, of when I'm going to be much more virile and fertile and sexual. And then I might go into this child rearing stage, and I'll be able to talk and communicate with my lover at that time, or my partner, about the needs and how they shift. And we'll go into it with full eyes open, rather than thinking it's the end of the world because we're not having sex anymore. I think that a lot of relationships that go into therapy are, they just don't really understand just like that whole season that happens with their lifespan, and understanding their emotions, and not really taking care of their hormone health as much as perhaps we could, and is optimal for ourselves these days. We're fighting against our biology. I love that you named your book A Brief History of Love, What Attracts Us, How We Fall in Love, and Why Biology Screws It All Up. I think that is such a brilliant name and subtitle for the book. I do want everybody to know a little bit more about your book and what they can expect in it and where they can find it.
Yes, sure. So it's in Amazon, but
Okay.
also Audible and digital. And Watkins publication. They publish it in the UK, but it's also available in the US, in bookshops. I know that Barnes and Noble and other retailers are also have this book, so you can order it. I have there also the scientific prescriptions for maintaining love. In understanding the biology, after you understand the biology, what to do. So there is a full prescriptions of 2 chapters, what we can do different than we do today, using the biology language. I like to talk in the language of hormones. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes us understand more.
Wow.
So it's like psychology, biology, evolution, the genes, the hormones. So I recommend it, of course.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I hope that everybody who's listening goes and picks up your book, because I think that there is so much to learn in it. And for those who have been in relationships and keep wondering why these things happen, I think that a lot of people get stuck in these cycles in relationships. You're going for the same kind of person. The same kinds of things happen in the last relationship, and now they're happening again. That's a bit of biology too. And I believe that that's discussed in the book. And looking at ways to be able to manage through, now that we have society, now that we know that maybe you're an empowered feminine and we want to have your life, you want to work, you want to have the kids, you want to have the happy ending, all of those things, and you deserve to, but know that sometimes it could be that your hormones and your biology are working against you. What to do about it? Wow, these prescriptions sound like they could be just really, really helpful for so many people.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Yes, Dr. Liat Yakir, thank you so much for being on the show today. And I will make sure that everybody has your website and your social handles in the show notes so that they can learn more about you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Human Beauty Movement podcast. Be sure to follow, rate, and review us wherever you stream podcasts. The Human Beauty Movement is a community-based platform that cultivates the beauty of humankind. Check out our workshops, find us on social media, and share our inspiration with all the beautiful humans in your life. Learn more at thehumanbeautymovement.com. Thank you so much for being a beautiful human.